Hi, um, welcome to questions. And well, you've supplied me with the questions, so these are my answers to them. We're in sunny Maroochydore, except it's not so sunny today, which is unusual, which is on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Now, first question, what role can AcuEnergetics play in people going through chemo radiation? A very big role. We've done, for 20 years, we've been treating people going through chemo and radiation, and basically the chemo aspect of it is that we try and clean the liver out and make it work well. We try and keep the spleen strong so the immune system stays really functioning, and we try and make the kidneys work really well. And so we're basically really focused on internal organs and making the body strong enough to cope with the poison from the chemo. And that works very well. In terms of radiation, that's sort of like treating a burn. So basically, when you do resonance, if you look at a burn, it's really interesting because, say, there's a cell, right? So when you get a burn, you get heat going into the cell, which is basically a type of electricity, right? A frequency, if you like. And when you do resonance to the cell, you actually make that release because it's electrical. And so then the cell returns to normal, so you don't get scarring. This is why it's amazing for, resonance is incredible for treating burns, because when you let that heat, that electricity go out of the cell, you don't get scarring, it returns to normal. Quite amazing to see how fast it works. It's really the best thing on the planet for treating burns. And radiation's the same, because radiation is basically a burn, but it's at a deeper level than the skin. So, but really you're treating it the same way. So it has a great effect in terms of lessening the damage to tissue from radiation. Next question. Typically, how long would it take to become a practicing balancer after taking level 3? It's really depending on how much time you've got, because you could easily do it in 12 months and without killing yourself to do it. You could probably do it in 6 months if you were sort of really sort of crazy keen doing it. But I'd say I don't think you'd do it in less than 6 months, and that's because while you can learn the balances, and some people learn sequences like that really fast, and some people need more practice at it, but the real thing is how well you learn the hand skills, because you still got to pass the hand skill exams, and I don't think, with my experience, that you could do that in less than 6 months. So you're probably really looking at 6 to 12 months, depending on how much time you can put into it. I would also say that practicing with other people is much better if you're going to, and I don't mean in terms of balances, because obviously you're going to do balances on other people, but if you want to improve your hand skills, so you want to do it fast, we really learned a lot from teaching in America to start with, because all the students in the States had fantastic hand skills when they did their exams, and really because they practiced as a group every week. And we started doing that in Australia because it really worked so well. So that's something to remember. How do emotions play into healing in AcuEnergetics and the energetic body? Well, I think the thing to understand is there's no such thing as a mind, a body, and emotion as 3 separate things. It's one thing. So they're different frequencies of the same thing. It's a bit like water, ice, steam. So you don't get something that affects the body that doesn't affect the mind and emotions, etc., etc. So you can, and this is why, like, people go into churches like if you go to Montmartre in Paris and you go to the Sacre-Cœur, the Sacred Heart, you walk into that place and so many people have been in there with their hearts open and lighting candles. You walk in and it's a real healing place. And this is really healing through emotion. But it's not the most efficient way to heal. And there are some places where people have done that a lot and they feel really good. But even so, it's good for some things and not for others. Like you're unlikely to be able to heal a hamstring injury by going in there, but you might heal grief, something like that. Because you can affect all of them from each of them, the easiest way to approach it is to approach it electrically, which is from the body electrical system, because that affects the emotions and it affects the mind as well. So that's our sort of basic position. If we get something specific, like someone comes in and says they've been sick since the day their mother died or something like that, then we're going to really look at emotions, and we have ways of doing that. But normally we would talk to somebody through the whole situation while we're actually treating the electrical field. Now there's two questions here that I'm going to put together, and that is, what's your take on myofascial release, craniosacral versus AcuEnergetics? And then there's another one that says, there seems to be a missing link. Reiki people talk about who do this modality. What are your thoughts on Reiki versus Acu? Well, I think basically, I've done Reiki, and I used to teach it years and years ago. But Reiki, myofascial release, and craniosacral therapy, to me, they're all techniques. They're not modalities. And I say that because, like, they are just techniques. If you look at a modality has an anatomy. It has a detailed understanding of how the body works from a certain perspective. So, Western anatomy has their view of how things work, but they ignore a whole part of it, which is the electrical system that forms it in the first place. What we do is we look at the anatomy in detail. And really, because it doesn't matter what technique you use, if you don't understand how the body's structured, you won't know how to apply it. So to me, it doesn't really matter whether you've got really strong hand skills doing Reiki, or whether, or what. If you don't know exactly how the body works, you won't know where to apply that for particular things. As for sort of myofascial release and craniosacral, yeah, I mean, they're really interesting techniques, but I would say really that craniosacral isn't much different from the sacral balance in AcuEnergetics, except the sacral balance gives you a bit more understanding of the structure, and it also is a bit more, I don't know what the word is, generous, I suppose, in terms of what you can treat with it. So that, if you just look at craniosacral, there's no doubt craniosacral works, But so do sacral balances, and actually sacral balances make a lot more sense, because the idea in craniosacral that you actually get movement of the cranial bones in adults is complete rubbish. Now, a friend of mine who's an anatomy professor, who's also an osteopath, put a few people through a 7 Tesla MRI machine to prove that a few years ago. There's literally no movement. Also, the idea that you're going to affect the fluid in the spinal column is only true because the fluid in the spinal column is electric, and so you're not actually moving the fluid, you're moving the electricity. And that's why you can go down lower. It's one of the sort of questions to people who do craniosacral. It's like, how come you can affect it in the spine below where the fluid is? And the reason is because it's electric. So it actually, you can go all the way down to the perineum and you can affect the spine. You can actually go, if you know the right way to go about it, you can go down to the toes and affect the spine. So, to me, those things don't have a really good grounding in anatomy. So, and because of that, yes, they're useful techniques, but I'd say that's really the difference. AcuEnergetics is really based on understanding the anatomy and then working from there. It's not just a technique that you do and cross your fingers and hope for the best. So a specific question about gallbladder pain. A chiropractor says, I've got gallstones, although this hasn't been confirmed by an ultrasound. Another natural health practitioner says, gallstones happen when the body's too acidic. What can AcuEnergetics do to help me save my gallbladder? Heaps. We do this all the time. It's really common. People don't understand the gallbladder. Gallstones aren't really made in the gallbladder. They're made in the liver. It's too much heat in the liver on the bile. Basically what happens is that you don't get the sphincter, if you like, of the gallbladder that opens into the small intestine, into the duodenum part of the small intestine, basically won't open wide enough, so it just doesn't dilate, right? And so then the stones get stuck. If you do resonance to it, you can dilate the head of it and then you get rid of the stones. Most of the problems with gallbladders and the fact that they have pain actually have nothing to do with stones. It's that the muscle that comprises the gallbladder has got too much tension in it, so it's got static charge in it, and so when you push it or when you move and that compresses it, you actually discharge electricity, so you're getting an electric shock. All pain is an electric shock. So if you do resonance and you take that out, you can do that directly by doing resonance, whereas there's nothing else you can do that with directly. Probably the next best treatment for gallbladders is acupuncture, but with acupuncture you have to do it by way of the channel because you're not allowed to stick needles in an organ, not that it would really do you any good. But by doing resonance to the organ, you can get really good results with that. We do this. I probably see half a dozen people a week with stuffed gallbladders, but they don't always present with sore gallbladders. They present with lower back pain or shoulder pain or something else that they've got from that. But it's quite simple to treat. What's your understanding of the importance of an alkaline diet for health? Do certain diets and eating certain foods to promote healing contribute to healing in AcuEnergetics? To be bluntly honest, if people were more interested in how they were emotionally, they could eat anything. Because the effect of being angry, being upset, being worried, being all these different things, and the times the intensity of them, is so much worse for your body than McDonald's hamburgers that it's not funny. So if you're really open and your heart's really open and you're just loving life, you don't have to worry about alkaline diets. I mean, if you want to really push the envelope and go, I'm 70. I'm pretty particular about what I eat because, I'm trying to live forever or die in the attempt. But, if you don't have to be that sort of strict about your diet to be healthy. It's really about how you are in your heart. That's the big thing for your health. Next one. I'm 16 years postmenopausal and have been diagnosed with osteoporosis and compression fractures. I've started taking a bioidentical hormones. I'm taking a whole lot of these, taking progesterone, testosterone, things like that. What's my take on it? we do a reverse aging, and it has nothing to do with pharmaceuticals at all. And it has nothing to do, I mean, I've been doing this for 2 years. So every Friday morning, 7 o'clock, I get a balance from, which is a different type of balance than we do in the balances program. But basically it works on the kidneys. And the reason is that when we age, the kidneys really have a huge effect. You know, there's a really interesting thing about ears, and some of you will know there's a whole technique of ear acupuncture, because you can basically access different parts of the body through the ear. But the reason that you can do that is because the ear is the shape of the kidney, and it's actually a mirror of the kidney. And the kidneys distribute to every single organ in the body, and all the points on the ear are actually points on the kidney. So if you treat the kidney, then you have a huge effect on the rest of the body. And one of the things that you have an effect on is bones, because the kidneys send a signal to the skeleton to make not only red blood cells, but bone. So when your kidneys weaken as you get older, that's why you get osteoporosis. If you can get the kidneys working better, you'll strengthen your bones, and you'll strengthen your muscles, and you'll strengthen the whole body, and then you won't have to worry about those things. There's one more thing here which says, are there educational materials available for educating the public clients about Acu other than the website? Yeah, there are, you know, little brochures and things like that. There are also my Instagram channel, Kevin Farrow on Instagram, and I post things about AcuEnergetics and meditation and stuff like that every week, sometimes twice a week on that. There will be, you know, we're working on a bunch of things at the moment, which is just to explain field theory and stuff like that to people that, you know, you guys will be able to print out and hand out to people and just get them to understand the basics of it. That's all. That's all your questions. I hope I've answered them for you, but let me know if you have any more questions. I'm really happy to answer. And I hope that I get to see a bunch of you later on this year in level 3.